Congressman, the vice president actually played Trump's own words at that rally when he talked about the enemy from within, talking about using the National Guard or the U.S. military to essentially stamp out dissent. We heard from Governor Walz that it made him sick to his stomach. What do you make of the vice president highlighting this?
It's not just politically essential, but it's so important just that all Americans understand the gravity of this threat. That's why Chairman Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and so many other generals who served directly for Donald Trump, saw him day in and day out as they were advising him on military affairs. They've all come out and criticized him, saying that he is unfit to be president of the United States. When people enlist in the United States military, they swear an oath to the Constitution, not to political leadership, not even to the nation at large, but to a set of principles, morals, and ethics. And this man right now is saying quite openly that he cares nothing about that. In his interview, when he talked about who that internal enemy is, he actually mentioned Adam Schiff's name.
Yeah.
He couldn't be more specific, and it just shows the gravity and the stakes of this election.
Do you think she should be leaning into that more and more in this home stretch?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It shouldn't be the only thing that she's talking about, and it's not, because in the end, what elections are is they are choices. And I think that the clear dichotomy here, the juxtaposition, is between insanity and incompetence, and quite the opposite. Someone who is stable, competent, ready to help America turn the page here. You know, Donald Trump, yes, he has been in multiple presidential elections, but he has never been in this type of change dynamic, where he's running against someone who represents a new generation of leadership, a new narrative for change. And I think this patriotic narrative, talking about how he is clinically insane, is exactly spot on.
Michael, last night, Trump hosted a town hall in Pennsylvania, and after 30 minutes or so, the event was paused. There were a couple of medical emergencies in the crowd, and then Trump spent the remainder of the event. He only took 5 questions and then spent the remainder of the event on stage listening to music for about 30 minutes. Watch.
Mm-hmm. Would anybody else like to faint? Please raise your hand.
Let's do it now.
Please raise your hand. You know what we could do, though? If my guys can do it, how about we'll do a little music. Let's make this a musical fest. Let's not do any more questions. Let's just listen to music. Let's make it into a music. Who the hell wants to hear questions, right? Isn't that beautiful, though?
Now, the Harris campaign immediately pounced on this. They called out a, quote, confused Trump. We showed those clips earlier of him dancing when they were having this musical fest. But NBC spoke to attendees who loved it.
Yeah, because everybody loves to be entertained. This is an entertainer here, people. This is not a president. This is the court jester who wants to be king. And the reality is, this man cannot be the leader of the free world. He cannot articulate a vision for that world. He cannot lay out a plan. He has concepts of plans. Now imagine if the current vice president of the United States got on a stage and said, "Oh, the hell with questions. Why don't we just sit here and listen to music?" There would have been all kinds of racial memes about her sex, about her ethnicity, and her being incompetent. She can't take questions. She only took 5 questions and she stopped and just wanted to stand on the stage and dance. You imagine Kamala Harris standing on the stage dancing like that 3 weeks before an election? America needs to get serious here and stop pretending that individual is going to provide the kind of future you want for your kids and grandkids. It's just not going to happen. And, I think the congressman is exactly right. About the idea of incompetency versus capability, seriousness versus unseriousness. So, I'm not going to blow my top on this one, Anna, like I have come on your show and done in the past.
You never blow your top.
I just think America 3 weeks out needs to get a grip and get over its hang-ups about a woman being the leader of the free world, being the president of our country, about another African-American ascending to the pinnacle of power and move this country into a future away from what we just saw.
To be clear, Michael, I always appreciate your passion in every interview that we have. Congressman, you both have laid out these big contrasts in the two candidates. One that is just the fact is their contrast in age. And we've been seeing the Harris campaign really try to lean into the older age issue with Trump, including, Governor Walz just yesterday. He said that, Trump is maybe hiding something from voters without releasing his medical records. Harris has said something along those lines as well. Here's part of Governor Walz.
We're all wondering. Donald Trump said that he would release his numbers. He would release his medical records. Look, he says now, I think he forgot to do it. He's been forgetting things. We'll give him a break on this, But Kamala Harris is right on this. Watch his rallies. He's confused. He's a nearly 80-year-old man. He's ranting and rambling until people get bored and leave his rallies. That's happening.
It's interesting because the age issue really damaged President Biden before he got out of the race. Could this attack line hurt Trump in the same way down this home stretch?
Sure. The only thing I disagree with is I don't think Donald Trump is hiding much. Look at, you have to be demented to stand on stage and start dancing when it's a town hall. I mean, we have two sides of Donald Trump right now. One, we have just this grave threat to all that we hold dear, our Constitution, our democracy. On the same hand, I would say the principal driving force of his incompetency is the fact that he is not all there. He's a couple fries short of a Happy Meal at this point, and that's why he's standing up there dancing to the YMCA. He can barely do the YMCA if you actually check out the video. And so this is a story in a video. You don't even actually have to listen to his words. And it's just imperative at this point that the campaign pushes those two separate narratives. Grave threat and also just supremely incompetent and entering the final stages of his life. I feel bad for his family right now. I know so many people have to deal with their parents as they've gone through stages of dementia, and that's clearly what they are on the precipice of having to deal with now. But he certainly should go nowhere near the Oval Office.
The bottom line is we don't know about his health. We don't know about his mental health or physical health and the intricacies that are important to know for viewers and voters who are making a judgment about whether he's fit for presidency, because he has not released those records. Thank you very much, former Congressman Max Rose and Michael Steele.